Food costs are up, and how do you adapt being a creative chef in Chicago? I believe chefs are similar to artists in the entertainment business. We're talking to Chef Curtis Duffy today about his career, life, and restaurant in Chicago ever. So I want to welcome Curtis to the show. How are we doing, Curtis?
I'm great, John. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Well, when I think about chefs in this day and time, me coming from the entertainment business and working with a lot of artists, I think chefs are artists. I see you've got some tattoos and got a little bit of a look going. Have a very high-end restaurant. How does that translate in your profession?
Well, I think you nail the artist side for sure. Every day as a chef, we have the opportunity to really, we're always on the line. We're always forced to express ourselves, if you will, and mostly it's through food. But obviously, there's many arts forms of expression. So whether it's through tattoos or, the way you wear your hair, obviously transcend into the way your food style is as well. So, for me, like it's a person, my food is like, I always try to refer to as a personality cuisine. And, you get who I am through the food.
Yeah, because I was looking at your menu. It's kind of a big experience for people, and it was like, I don't know, how many courses do you get in your menu?
Yeah, anywhere from 10 to 12 to 15 courses, depending on the night. We try to look at it through the eyes of like a way a musician would look at recording a record or an album. They go in the studio, they lay down some tracks, and everybody has a part from the drums to the bass to the vocals, and everybody has this particular part that they need to lay down. And then, the restaurant's in the very same fashion where we start to develop dishes. Myself, the sous chef, chef de cuisine, we all play a specific role, starting with really raw ideas on paper, conceptualization on paper, and then we start to transition that into everyday working, developing a sauce, developing what that ingredient is. And then once it's completed, we taste it and we kind of go from there. And that's one dish of 12 to 15 that's on the menu. And that's really how we try to think of it, is every season is a new album for us. Every season is a new opportunity to create something new.
Do you think the cuisine, I don't know, what do you consider your cuisine, first of all?
Well, again, I think it's personality cuisine. It's vegetable focused, vegetable friendly focused. It's ingredient driven, in a way that, we specifically pick one ingredient per dish, if that makes sense. So if we're saying fennel, we're going to try to explore fennel in any way possible we can, and that be the main focus of that dish. And then we try to create three sub flavors that would eat well with fennel.
Hmm.
So if we're going to say fennel, blood orange, black olive, and black garlic, those three flavors end up eating very well together and also allows the fennel to shine through.
When I think about that, I think about my wife because she's very into foods, organics, superfoods, those types of things. So when you think about the level of your restaurant, and when I look at it and how chic it is, and just the decor, what cuisine started this? Was it the Asian cuisine? Was it the sushi?
Well, it's not actually all vegetables. That's just for me, like that's just the starting point. So if we take that same fennel dish that we're talking about, that could be the starting point, but maybe we want to add a beautifully grilled scallop to it, or maybe it's a rabbit tenderloin or something in that nature. So the vegetable seems to be the starting point
Mm-hmm.
because, if you just think of like, what can you do with beef? That gets just very boring very quickly. But if you look at beets in the same way, so many different cooking techniques that we can apply to beets to get different flavors and textures from. Whereas, a protein is somewhat limited, although I don't think anybody's reached the full potential of what we could do with it. But, I feel like it is more limited than a vegetable. So we do start with the vegetable. We are not a vegetarian, vegan restaurant
Mm-hmm.
per se.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, But we like to, that's kind of like the starting point. That's the more playful side for me.
So the vegetable is kind of the lead palette.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it is predominant through each course, somehow, some way it has either vegetable or fruit within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you think about that, you get to the center of a steak, you get to the center of chicken, there's only one flavor there.
Yeah. And it gets very boring to eat, right?
Yeah.
2 or 3 bites in, it's just like, okay, I already, the next bite, you already know what's going to happen.
Yeah. That's a very interesting take and a very interesting look at it because a lot of people lead with, say, a protein or a steak, and hey, we're having steaks tonight. And then all the vegetables and everything else is secondary if you go to a cookout, you know?
Yeah, your side dishes, all the other things are mostly vegetable focused too. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, how did you come up with that thought process?
I think again, I think it's just the way that I like to eat. It's very clean, it's very minimal.
Uh-huh.
They're more interesting for me. They're just more interesting, you know. You can look at a carrot one way, then you can think of 900 different possibilities of what that carrot could be. How many different cooking techniques can we do? How many different raw preparations can we use it with? So it's and different forms of the carrot. So it's more interesting, I guess. So we kind of just lean that way to kind of get the creative process going.
Now, when you look at the chef business, being a chef, so if there's a young kid out there that's trying to come up and do the work and get to a point that you're at, how do you go from, hey, I want to be a chef, to having this type of experience? Because I would imagine that's a lot of hours, it's a lot of work. What did you have to do to get to this point of your career?
Spend 35 years in the kitchen.
Yeah,
I mean, really, it's not an overnight success. It is a lot of demand, of course, and it's a lot of time spent dedicated to the craft and being patient and being determined to get where you want to be. I think more than anything, it is head down, focus on just getting better every single day and trying to learn everything about the business as much as you can. You know, you have all the time in the world to open a restaurant in your late 20s, early 30s, but if you don't have the fundamentals and the foundation of cooking, things become very hard very quickly. Even the business sense, if you don't have that very fundamental business sense of running a restaurant, you know, it's more than just knowing how to cook. You know, there's a lot more behind all of that, understanding P&Ls and your profit margins are very slim already in the restaurant world. Understanding that how to minimize that and gain profitability through studying those sheets that every day. You know, it's you're not just walking in the kitchen every day creating, you know, there's a lot more behind it.
yeah. Well, I can relate to that. I mean, my wife is a chef, and she's not a trained chef. She's just trained herself. I mean, I think she's a taster, so she can take different things and duplicate a taste. And I think that's a talent. But I can relate to what you're saying because she got an opportunity with this kitchen called Amora Kitchen in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a nonprofit, and they serve plant-based foods, organic foods. And when she went to interview, they loved what she did in the kitchen, but they hired this other chef because she didn't have that experience with the business end of it. So do you have to have, and I don't think a lot of people realize that, from the public, from the outside looking in, do you think you have to have both sides of your brain working to pull this off? Because that's almost what that is, isn't it?
It is, you know, look, you also need to surround yourself with incredibly talented people, right? You can't think that you can do it all. Like I don't necessarily think that I could do the business side full time or the chef side full time. I need to have a balance of both. You know, if you are aligning yourself with great people and surrounding yourself with great people that have the best interest and the same interest together, it makes it a lot easier. You know, if one of your business partners is focusing on the business, one is focusing on, you know, maybe the front of the house and you're in the kitchen, it makes your job a little bit easier because you can focus on the strengths of what you have, right? My strength is being a chef. My strength is cooking, tasting, you know, managing the team, getting the team motivated in a way that we are successful every night. You know, I have a business partner that's incredibly great at the business side of it. So allow him to do what he's great at as well.
Mhm.
But also know that you still need to understand that. So you can have that strong connection, you can have that strong dialogue in conversation and understand where he's coming from and where he understands where you're coming from when you have things that need to be solved together.
Now, where are you from originally, and where'd you grow up?
My first 13 years on this beautiful planet was in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And then we moved to Columbus, outside of Columbus, Ohio, when I was 13, sixth grade, seventh grade. And then I spent my rest of the time, I was 20, 21, 22, in Columbus, Ohio, and then moved to Chicago. I've been here 25 years now.
Oh, okay. So when you were a kid, did you do anything else that was artistic?
I'll tell you, I enjoyed music incredibly. I attempted to play the drums when I was in my 20s. My neighbors hated it, so that didn't go over well. I love riding motorcycles. Motorcycles have been a part of my life since I was 5 years old. I had training wheels on my first motorcycle, so that has always been a part of my life. But artistically, not really. Not really. I sketched a little bit, but never was like thought of myself being an artist.
Now, what do your parents do?
Both of my parents are actually
Oh,
deceased.
okay.
They've been
Sorry to hear that.
passed away for about 30 years now.
Wow. So you've kind of been a survivor.
Yeah, I've been kind of on my own. Well, since I was 18 is when they passed away.
Wow. Congratulations. You've done a lot to go the right direction, and now you're ranked one of the top 50 chefs in the world of fine dining.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah. If you're a survivor, and I get emotional when I have accolades. I mean, when you hear something like that, Chef Curtis Duffy, top 50 chefs in the world in fine dining, what does that mean to you?
I mean, obviously that is an incredible honor to be a part of and be amongst the other world's 50 best. Yeah, I try not to I don't try to think about it too much, you know. It's an honor to be a part of it, and I'm certainly blessed with it, but I never really got into cooking to garner the awards. I didn't actually think they were even around at the time when I started cooking, that people were receiving awards or any type of accolade or notoriety for being a chef. Everybody I was surrounded with was like, this is the hardest business you're ever going to get into. It's long hours and very little money. But that to me was, I didn't even think about it. It was, for me, it was just the love of food immediately, the love of being in the kitchen. That environment somehow just infected me, and I just never stepped away from it. And so I never did it from that perspective of, I got to garner all these amazing awards and be this amazing chef. I just wanted to be the best at what I could do, who I could be every day.
Well, I mean, if you think about that, you think about being ahead. If a lot of people are looking for the accolade or looking for something to be recognized, then it's just to be recognized. I don't think it has anything to do with your craft. And I think if you lead the narrative, I mean, that's somewhat of a pioneer mindset, because you're not really thinking about what's behind you. So I get that a lot. You have this first book out called Fireproof. What kind of story are you telling in this book, Fireproof?
Well, with Fireproof, it is obviously it's a memoir of my entire life, from childhood through present day. And it is filled with some amazing stories, some stories that would make you cry, make you cringe, make you laugh, happy, excited. There's food stories, there's a little bit of everything. And when my partner and I, Jeremy Wagner, decided to write this book, we almost spoke the same language in a way that we wanted absolutely zero sugarcoating and tell the ultimate raw truth, because we both have read many memoirs where it's kind of just these fluff stories of somebody's life, and they don't go digging too deep into some of the darker stuff. But for me, like, because of the documentary For Grace, I felt like, my story was kind of already out there and told, but it was told very on the surface. People were so inspired by just the surface level of my documentary that I felt like maybe people would want more. So I decided to write that memoir, and I think Jeremy did an incredible job at telling that story, and really not sugarcoating anything. He asked the right questions at the right time, and I think it was brilliant.
Tell me a little bit about the documentary.
Well, in 2016, a gentleman by the name of Kevin Peng, actually it was early. I want to say maybe 2012, 2013. He asked me This was when I was at a restaurant called Avenues, and that was inside the Peninsula Hotel. This was, or previously before we opened Grace. He asked me to film how I compose a dish in the kitchen, and I asked him. I said, when would this be released? And he said, oh, like 6 months from now. And I'm like, well, I'll be gone from Avenues at that point because I'm starting to build my own restaurant. So he asked, oh, can I film that? So we started filming, the daily grind of what it takes to build a restaurant. So he was following me every day, every day, every day. And then at one point it had to been a pretty long, tedious day, and I was pretty exhausted, and he had come back to my house to continue to film. And he started asking about my parents and that story behind that. And I was very vulnerable at the time and just kind of let it all out, and it was all on film. And then that's when he realized, like, wow, we really have more than just, opening of this restaurant. We actually have a really good story. So then that's when it was decided to turn this thing into a documentary. And so we continued filming, and long story short, turned into a documentary called For Grace. And it went on to go through all of the process of the documentaries, where it went from city to city onto a small tour, and ended up on Netflix for about 4 or 5 years. It's back on Apple now and Amazon.
How much value do you think that thing gave you?
Well, I think it gave a lot of notoriety. It certainly reached international people from all over the world have seen it. People all over the world has reached out, and they send me messages even to this day how much it's changed their life, how much they changed the way of thinking. So as we decided to open Ever, we started filming again. I started filming with a new filmmaker who's extremely talented, named Frankie Nasso, and we started filming. So we filmed probably 3 solid years, and we're in the process of finishing that documentary.
Should we expect that documentary to see that documentary anywhere yet? Do you know anything?
Hopefully by the end of this year. Hopefully by this year it'll be out,
Okay.
streaming somewhere. Let's hope.
One person that I've seen where I don't know what color your nails are painted, was Al Pacino.
Either black.
Black, right?
Ah, yeah,
I
yeah,
met Al Pacino for the first time in New York City. Painted his nails black, his toes black. What's going through the mind? What's that creative thought process like? You got a few tats. Where does that come from?
yeah. I don't know. I think it's an expression. I think I like being different, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm not the guy who's gonna be the straight and narrow, and it's a little edgy for me. It's just my
yeah.
style.
It's cool. It's just funny. A lot of artists, even we came up with Bert Chryser in the comedy industry. I remember stories about Bert. Uh, he would bring the staff pizza at the comedy club or whatever, but very artistic guy, but you wouldn't realize that just kind of looking at his surface, if you will. And I think he has kind of similar mindset with the nails and so forth. So when you talking about the motocross and doing that and loving that, is that your escape? Is that like your side where, hey, I don't have to think about anything else. This is enough action. I can get out here and ride and be free for a minute away from your business. What does that do for you, the motocross world?
Yeah, it's not even necessarily the motocross. It's being on a motorcycle, whether it's in the dirt in the mountains or on the street. They both have the same kind of disconnect, just like what you said. It is a disconnect from, work and emails and text messages and phone messages. And it gives you a moment for a few hours a day to, or a few hours whenever you get out to do those things, to kind of just reflect internally and in your, without a lot of outside noise, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it is for me, it is very therapeutic. I have conversations inside my helmet, but not necessarily conversations and engaging with other people. Sometimes it's nice to just shut that off.
Mm-hmm. So we have a great documentary that's been released. You're known. You're releasing this book, Fireproof. When you think about going back to the business end of this thing, and I just want to touch on this because I think everybody in the country are thinking about these types of things as well. Has the food cost and that type of thing, does that affect how you deliver a product, and how have y'all adjusted, and have you seen any pullbacks or more cost, less profit?
Absolutely. Everything is doubled, tripled, in pricing in terms of the food world. It used to be, $1.50 delivery charge from the company down the street who's delivering to myself and four other restaurants in the same neighborhood, but everybody gets hit with the same delivery fee. Now they call it fuel charge, which, it went from $1.50 to I think they're around $8 now. I would have to go back and look, but it's been in the six and sevens for a long time. And that's literally just to come down the street, deliver your product, and hit seven other restaurants that with the same fuel charge. It is a little ridiculous. And the cost of goods are extremely high right now, but we're trying to we certainly don't want to be the most expensive restaurant in the city or in the country. And our prices haven't changed. We've just found ways to kind of, we minimize and we dig deep internally and try to really focus on buying only what we need and minimize our costs that way so our guests can still experience what we do at the same level, but also at the same price. And we're not, we don't always have to raise the prices just because our prices are raised. We can kind of internally absorb that for a while just to make sure that our guests are able to experience it.
Well, does that create conflict? Because if being an artist and wanting to deliver, you really have to figure that out and streamline that. Does that get aggravating from the artistic value you want to deliver?
It can, but it forces us also internally to, you know, we don't always have to use the high-end products to be a high-end restaurant. I think there is some expectation that, oh, when you go to a restaurant at my level, that you should see caviar and truffles and foie gras and all these luxurious ingredients. But I think if the chef is creative enough and talented enough that if you can find a way to serve a chicken thigh that normally wouldn't be served in a restaurant of that caliber in a creative way, it doesn't matter that it doesn't have foie gras on it or caviar on the menu. You know, now it's we found ways to balance both. Not every dish has to be luxurious, but every dish has to be tasty and thought out properly. But it doesn't have to necessarily have all these luxurious ingredients in it. So there's a balance within the menu. Maybe this season we're not going to use Wagyu beef, but we're going to use caviar and a couple other high-end things. But we take the Wagyu beef off to kind of save a little bit more money and use a different cut of meat or use something that's more local.
Well, when you think about that too, I would imagine that does take a very smart chef to pull that off and get it done right. Because a lot of people can't. I don't think a lot of people can take those changes and adjust, if you will. So if you come into your restaurant and you have this lead, this type of vegetable type lead palette, taste palette, what do you think are your best dishes, and what should you expect from this restaurant? You know what I'm saying? What is your favorite thing to deliver to the guest?
Well, for me, like I really want to be that chef that we try not to serve the same dish over and over and over. I don't really want to be known for a particular dish. So that forces us to always be changing, right? It forces us to look at something every year, every season differently. So if we know like right now peas are coming into season, like we can't serve that same dish that we served last year because it was successful. We have to be creative and, create something with the peas this year's that is completely different than we've ever served. And that's really the fun part of cooking, right? That's like that is an expression of who we are and creativity. So that's the fun part. I don't think it's that exciting when you're serving the same dish for years and years and years.
Mhm.
Very mundane. I mean, there is a beautiful part of it where you can just every single day tweak it to try to make it better. And I get that side of it as well. That's not who I am.
Mhm.
When the dish is on the menu, yes, we every day we are focusing on just these little tiny subtleties to make it better every day. But once the dish is off, it's off. We're not going to revisit that dish next year. We're always changing. It is a degustation menu, so it's always changing.
Mhm.
I try to tend to look at the seasons 52 weeks out of the year as opposed to three, every 3 months. One week we have white asparagus, the next week we're not able to get it anymore. So we have to be that restaurant that is a step ahead of the game with new ideas or new dishes, and not be the spontaneous and try to cook in the moment and try to be that spontaneous restaurant.
I mean, I can relate to that from like a comedian aspect. If you come up with a set, you add tags to that set till you can't add any more tags, and then you just got to put it to bed. So I get that. And if people want to find you and get this book, and you mentioned where the documentary has aired and where it's airing now, where do we find your information, and where are you located in Chicago? The restaurant's located in Chicago.
Yeah, with Fireproof, it's available anywhere books are sold. Barnes and Noble, Target, Walgreens or Walmart, Amazon, of course. It will be released August 5th of this year, 2025. Pre-orders are up now. Anybody can pre-order it. Certainly, you can get at either one of the restaurants with Ever and After, and that's located at 1340 West Fulton Street. So we're in the West Loop of Chicago, just west of downtown Chicago.
I think we've hit a lot of different angles trying to really dive into who you are and what you do. Is there anything else that maybe we didn't touch on?
No, I don't think so. I think we touched on a lot. It's been great.
Awesome. Chef Curtis Duffy is a true artist. And if you want to see his true art, go check out his restaurant in Chicago. Look forward to checking his book out, Fireproof, coming out here in August. And hope everybody enjoyed the show and learned something from this episode. My name is John Edmonds Kozma, CEO of Bang Productions, owner of the TikTok Live Creator Network Agency, and host of the Unimpressed Podcast. We'll see you next time.